Hey guys, so we were about to release this news video, and then all of a sudden, as it turns out, Michael Malone of the Denver Nuggets just got fired along with their GM, Calvin Booth, which is what his name is. Yes. So I'm going to give my immediate reaction to this. It was kind of last second. So wow, is this just going to become the new trend in the NBA? The Grizzlies do this with Taylor Jenkins and now the Nuggets with Malone. I really don't know if now was the time nor place to do this, but I felt the same with Jenkins, and since then I feel like I've mostly liked what I've heard about how they've been changing things up. And the thing is with the Denver Nuggets is they have been incredibly stagnant, so I could see wanting to mix things up, and I think the major reason why in the NBA coaches being fired is so common is that's like the least consequential way of shaking things up. It's a lot harder to like do a Jamal Murray trade and actually get substantial value out of that than it is to fire Mike Malone, hope that a new guy comes in and changes things for the better, and it makes it look like you're actually doing something. But this isn't just the GM firing the coach. The GM got fired too, and this GM has walked the Denver Nuggets towards failure. A bunch of contracts that shouldn't have been given out, letting players go when you could have fought harder for them and things of that nature. There's not a ton of like major mistakes that Calvin Booth has made necessarily, but there's enough of them that has piled up, and pretty much all of the core, if I'm not mistaken, of that team was built up by the previous general manager before him. So he's mostly just been there in the aftermath of their championship level success and not done a good job at recapturing it and retooling the roster. So ownership was just like, we got to rip this whole thing out and start fresh. And all I wonder is, are they going to appoint a head coach themselves, or are they going to hire a GM and then appoint a head coach, and then Michael Malone's staff member ends up being the fill-in coach for the immediate future? Maybe they feel like some assistant on their bench is actually supposed to be the head coach or should be the head coach, and they went with that. Either way, the timing of it to me, it's like you're not going to find a new guy in this time frame, so it would have to be an assistant. So at that point, it's kind of up in the air how much influence that assistant has, because what we've seen with the Memphis Grizzlies is it seems like the assistants were a core reason why the Grizzlies were working, and it wasn't just like the Taylor Jenkins show so much as it was a big collaborative effort, and having someone else be the face of it is completely within reason. I don't know if there's somebody like that for Denver. I'm sorry, I'm not very familiar with their assistant coaching staff, but my understanding as well is that head coaches kind of pick who their coaching staff is going to be. So, it can't feel like you have a super secure job as the interim head coach. Yeah, I don't know. This is a hell of a time to shake it up. I'm not saying it won't work, but the odds are very low that it would. And yeah, dude, unless there's just like behind the scenes, Michael Malone was way more of a problem than I would have thought he was otherwise, I can't see this working out. And I don't think it'll work out for the Grizzlies either, but I at least felt better about it after a certain amount of time. I don't know if I'm going to feel that way about Malone, because Mike Malone to me was one of the better coaches in the NBA. Now, I don't think he was a prestigious, unfireable coach by any means, but I at least thought he earned enough favor within this franchise to not get fired at a time like this. Like, I really didn't think that Denver was going to catch lightning in a bottle again, but I thought it was worth giving that a try with the players that you had before doing such a drastic thing. So I recorded a video that isn't out yet, but it'll be coming out later this week about the 2025 offseason and how much crazy shit could end up going down. I would not be surprised at all if the Denver Nuggets saw a massive roster overhaul in this postseason, especially if they don't do well in the playoffs, or in the offseason, not the postseason. If they don't do well in the playoffs, I think everybody besides for Jokic is not safe. I think anybody on that roster could be on the move at that point, and things will get interesting. There are Kevin Durant rumors. That could be something. I don't really know how you get value out of Jamal Murray beyond what he's currently bringing you in value, other than like maybe breaking him up into multiple different contracts instead of one, so it gives you more flexibility. But in terms of like getting a star second option perimeter player next to Jokic, well, that's not going to fucking happen with a trade. So man, I don't know. This is wild. Completely caught us off guard. We were literally walking out of the fucking door and it gets reported that Mike Malone got fired. Yeah. Wow. All right. On with the rest of the news. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video, and check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you would like to enjoy this show as an audio-only experience. With that said, we did not make the last NBA news appointment, and I'm pretty sure this is our last one, right? Yeah, this is our last news video for a minute as the playoffs are coming around. Back and forth as to how frequently we've been doing these things, but you guys seem to enjoy them and they're fun to make. So let's get into today's NBA news. The Los Angeles Lakers absolutely blew the Thunder out of the water in their game the other day, and this was in large part due to some major shooting variance as the Lakers were just incredibly on fire from outside in the first half. A lot of that can purely be chalked up to shooting variance. A decent amount of it was OKC's rotations just not being as good as I would like them to be. The irony of this is that we had timed this video about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to go up in this game. Ended up working against our favor because of this blowout being as significant as it was. That video will be going up later in the week. Bad timing to talk about how much flowers SGA deserves because he did not have a good game, nor did pretty much anybody else on the Thunder. Now, I will say that 26 points and 9 assists on league average efficiency in 30 minutes being a down game for you is pretty illustrative of how damn good SGA is. But even with that, not the right time to celebrate him necessarily. J-Dub, 16 points on 14 shots. Not good. Chet Holmgren, only 10 points on 6 shots. This is the type of shit that, like, is my big concern with the Thunder. I recently made a video like, can anybody beat the Thunder? Are they unstoppable? Is their championship inevitable? And the things that I highlighted as what would work against them if they did lose was shooting variance, because they're not a super strong three-point shooting team, and size being an issue. And there were multiple possessions in this game where the Lakers just simply outsized the Thunder. Lou Dort got taken to the rim by Luka on a few occasions. I know LeBron, I remember a play distinctly where LeBron took Alex Caruso to the rim like it was nothing. And it's like, yes, these guys might be good at playing bigger than they are, but there is a difference between being able to do that against Jeremy Grant and being able to do that against LeBron and Luka. So that will be a problem for them, and three-point shooting could be a problem for them, and that was everything that I said could be a problem for OKC very much was in this game. Now, does that mean that they exposed the Thunder or anything with that level of drama and magnitude? No, I would not push it that far. But it would be fair to say that this was illustrative of a lot of the problems with the Thunder, and it kind of gives you an idea of what to be looking out for. That's what I would take away from it, but one game does not take away from an MVP case, as much as people were quick to jump all over SGA in this one, like, oh, you get 0 free throw attempts and see what happens. Still better production than almost any other player in the NBA is capable of, but whatever, I guess he sucks. Excellent performance from the Lakers across the board. 30-point game from Luka. He was ridiculous from outside in that first half. I believe he finished 5 for 8 in the first half. 20 points from Austin Reeves. 19 and 7 assists from LeBron on good efficiency, and he did this pretty much entirely. Actually, yeah, he's 1 for 1 from 3. And that was a ridiculous 3 in its own right. He's 1 for 1 from 3, and it was a LaFuck you 3. A bunch of mid-range shots out of the post and stuff like that. I saw a post that was like, the Hooper fans on Twitter love mid-range jump shots until LeBron starts hitting a bunch of them, and then suddenly it's just not talked about. But yeah, bunch of middies from Bron in this one. Fun game to watch. Here are our postseason possibilities at the time of April 7th. So these are the seeds in which these teams could finish. It's technically still open for the Celtics to pass the Cavs because the Cavs have been on a little bit of a skid recently. The Thunder got the 1 seed locked in. The Lakers could potentially jump to 3, and they are currently at the front of that race for 3. But if you look at 4 through 8 in the Western Conference, there are fucking 7 teams that could end up in, or 3 through 8 rather, because the Rockets could also fall into the 3 seed. So the Western Conference is ridiculous. And then when we're talking about the East, there's still quite a bit of jumbling up that could happen with the 3 through 6 seeds, which will definitely matter if, like, I don't know, it kind of just seems like in the East, the mid teams can move around a little bit and the top seeds are going to stay the same and the play-in teams could move around a little bit, but nothing that is that seismic and important. But holy shit, the West, dude. Holy shit, the West. The one thing that the Celtics and Cavs have on everybody else is that they only will have to face each other coming out of the conference, which, yes, that might be a worse individual opponent, but they're probably going to have a fairly easy go of it for their first 2 rounds. Here are the current standings in the East. We have the Cavaliers about 4 games ahead of the Celtics, so very, very unlikely that seed ends up flipping. And in the West, the bloodbath, as I mentioned, every seed being a difference of like 1 game, 1.5 or 2 games and shit. Crazy stuff. Our players of the month out west, we got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander averaging 35 points and 7 assists with a 15-1 record. Good God. And then the 9-6 Chicago Bulls, it goes to Coby White averaging 28 points and 5 rebounds. Yeah, Coby has had a hell of a March, not surprising to me at all. Like, a lot of the focus was on Josh Giddey because, understandably, as it relates to the Alex Caruso trade and how much they were going to invest in him in the future, the way that he's been playing has been more of a surprise because Coby White was nearly most improved player last year. But I have not ever thought that Coby White could handle this kind of scoring volume at a high rate. Even after last year, he had the season he did, I was like, still, this guy's like tops a 22 point per game score. And like, he's still around that mark on the season. So I guess that rings true. But like, the way that he's played good with this volume, with winning games throughout this entire stretch, reads to me like he could actually legitimately be like a perennial all-star tier guy. So Coby White, maybe the most continuing to prove me wrong player ever, because as I do bring up my level of expectation for him each time, it's always a little bit less than I probably should, and he exceeds those expectations, which I got no complaints about from a player on my own team, except for the other one. The other candidates in the West, Luka, Ant, Zubac, Harden, Alfred Şengün, and in the East, OG Anunoby, Cat, Paolo Banchero, Quentin Grimes, Tyrese Halliburton, and Pascal Siakam, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, and Trae Young. OG for the Knicks, not as shocking as you might think because he's been on a hell of a streak recently. Our Defensive Player of the Month award is going to Draymond Green. It's not ours, it's the NBA. I don't know why I said it like that, but Draymond Green wins for the West. The Warriors ranked 4th in defense. Green is 3rd in the West in steals per game and 3rd in contested shots per game. Meanwhile, 3.3 steals per game for Dyson Daniels in the East, 5.4 deflections, and 3.1 forced turnovers per game. I guess that's on top of steals. I guess steals aren't considered forced turnovers, so this is deflections that resulted in the turnover. So he's forcing 6.4 turnovers per game in total, which is fucking nuts. Our other nominees in the West, Toumani Camara, Lou Dort, and Ivica Zubac for the West, and then the East gets OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, and Evan Mobley. The NBA's Rookie of the Month for March goes to Stephon Castle for the San Antonio Spurs. His scoring volume has increased with Victor Wembanyama gone up to nearly 20 points per game, and Zachary Risache has been on a real fucking tear lately. 16 points per game in the month of March. He's the least talked about #1 overall pick in God knows how long. He's going to be, at the worst, a seriously high-level role player, like one of the best play finishers in basketball, while being an extremely good and versatile defensive player. So I really like Zachary Risacher a lot, and it's been nice to see him finally find his stride. Our other nominees in the West, we have Donovan Clingan, Isaiah Collier, and Kyle Filipowski, Zach Edey, and Quentin Post. And in the East, you have Manas Buzelis, Justin Edwards, Alex Sarr, Jamal Shed, and Kalel Ware. On top of winning Rookie of the Month, Zachary Risacher also had a career game. He scored 36 points and got 6 rebounds and a steal, and he shot 12 for 21 from the field and 5 for 11 from three-point range. And the Hawks get a pretty convincing 145-124 win over the Milwaukee Bucks. He became just the 10th teenager in history to score at least 36 points in a game, joining the likes of LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony. That's pretty good company in terms of getting buckets. Coach of the Month, Mark Daigneault for the Western Conference, Joe Mazzulla for the East. Both teams losing just one game in the entire month of March. That's why Boston has been able to creep up on the Cavs, because the Cavs have not been as great as of late. Even still, Kenny Atkinson was a candidate in the East, but Rick Carlisle, Billy Donovan, Darko, sorry, I still haven't figured out how to say his last name, and Quinn Snyder are candidates in the East. Chris Finch, Steve Kerr, Tyronn Lue, and Ime Udoka are the other nominees in the West. The Timberwolves and Denver Nuggets had a hell of a game. There were some players missing, both Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo, because of a scuffle they had before with the Detroit Pistons, where this happened. That's all that I'm going to say about that, but that is Isaiah Stewart, in case you were wondering. Keel Alexander-Walker hits 2 free throws with 0.1 seconds remaining, and the Timberwolves overcame a career-best performance from Nikola Jokic to outshine them 140-139 in double overtime. Ugly end to this one for the Nuggets, as Russ would steal the ball and then immediately miss a layup, and then on the next possession, he would foul Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the corner to allow those free throws. Bad shit. Very ugly Russell Westbrook moment that made a lot of people kind of backtrack about what they said about him going into this year. And he's definitely not been as magical as he was at the start, but I also think people were a little too keen to jump ship on him. I still think he's going to be fine, albeit in probably a more limited postseason role than his regular season role. The Nuggets now drop to 18-3 at home when tied or leading after the first quarter. Minnesota's bench outscored Denver 40-14, which goes to show you the difference in depth there. And Jokic finished 18 for 29 from the floor with 6 3-pointers, getting a 60-point triple-double. He played 52 minutes and did not leave the floor after halftime. The Timberwolves have now won 6 straight over the Denver Nuggets, including the playoffs. Wow. Just a matchup nightmare for the Denver Nuggets, historically, it seems. Just to highlight a couple of more impressive box scores, here's the 52-10 game from Steph, where he had 12 threes. Buzelis had a 28.9 rebound, 6 assist game. Ethical buckets there. I don't think he got any free throws, or he got just a few. Carmelo Anthony is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. There were some people debating about this, whether or not that should be the case, but I think if you score 20,000 or more points in the NBA, I think you're allowed in the Hall of Fame. That's my threshold of okay, it's kind of hard to say you're not a Hall of Famer with 28,000 career points. So yeah, I'm not mad about that at all, even if I do think that Melo was a player that was often overrated in his time and is even often overrated by some people now. I don't think he's overall an overrated player, even though there are some people who'll be like, dude, he was just as good as Kobe for a couple of years, which is fucking ridiculous. For the most part, there's a lot of nostalgia about Melo that cuts out some of the bad aspects of his game, but nevertheless, he is still one of the 100 best players in NBA history, and there's a whole hell of a lot of dudes in the Hall of Fame who aren't that. So Good for him. The Pistons without Cade stun the Cleveland Cavaliers. This, as I mentioned, the Cavs have been kind of struggling recently. Dennis Schroeder got 16 points and 10 assists. Duren with 16 points and 13 rebounds. Asar Thompson with 18 points and 10 rebounds. Meanwhile, Garland had 21 points for the Cavs, and Evan Mobley had just 9 and a terrible -23 plus minus. Detroit also had a 25-6 advantage in fast break points. Detroit withstood a performance from Donovan Mitchell, who scored 22 in the fourth quarter. I don't know. It's kind of wild that they did this without Cade, because the Pistons are still a more impressive team than, a lot of other teams without their best players, or at least a few. But they really rely on Cade in terms of top playoff teams in the East, relying on one guy. He's up there. We got better NBA media back. Zach Lowe, our Lord and Savior, has gone to the Ringer to join Bill Simmons. I'm not as big on some of these traditional guys, but I do recognize Zach as one of the best in the business at actually just knowing what he's talking about and not sensationalizing. Like, in terms of like mainstream NBA media people that you should actually listen to, Zach Lowe is very high up on that list. So I'm glad. I fucking hate non-compete clauses. I don't think they should be a thing at all. It's kind of ridiculous that is allowed, but it's nice to see him back on top of, as we mentioned in the last news video, Mind the Game is coming back. So I really, really hope that this is going to help shift the landscape in a better direction. We've already seen a lot of positive signs lately, but I know Brian Windhorst said some shit like, if LeBron thinks people are going to watch a podcast about X's and O's, he's sorely mistaken. Meanwhile, the biggest clip ESPN had like all week got a third of the views that the new Mind the Game episode got, and that was a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago when I saw that, so probably only gotten better. The Memphis Grizzlies fired Taylor Jenkins. They did that on Friday as the team has been struggling down the stretch and was at risk of losing home court advantage for the postseason. Jenkins led the Grizzlies for 6 seasons, winning more games in total than any other Memphis head coach in team history. The Grizzlies announced Thomas Iasalo will take over as their interim head coach for the remainder of the season and likely onwards. Memphis general manager Zach Kleinman said Saturday the decision to fire Coach Jenkins with 9 games remaining in the regular season with the franchise firmly in the playoff chase was mine and mine only, and in the Grizzlies' best interest. Yeah, I do think they have gone out of their way to be like, Ja did not ask for this, because that's certainly what the optics kind of look like if you're just not paying attention. But I don't think that's what happened, even if he did, like, by extension in a way. Some positive Grizzly stuff. Zach Edey sets a franchise record for rebounds in a game by a rookie. Also ties Steven Adams for a game high in rebounds as a Grizzly, while also being tied for the 6th highest rebounds in a game in franchise history. That was one thing with Taylor Jenkins that I didn't like, is I did wish that he played Zach Edey more, even though I understand some of the limitations that he has. I really like the image of what that lineup could look like if it actually worked, and I don't think it was given enough opportunity. Less positive stuff about the Grizzlies. The NBA warned Ja about a gun gesture, and then he did it again and got fired for $75,000. It's been pointed out time and time again that like Dalton Connect also did a similar gesture before that, but I can understand there being like a track record on that and being a part of it, but there is no denying that there is definitely I don't know. I think it's a little weird how concerned the NBA is with this thing. Like, if he kept flashing actual guns, it would be one thing, but this is just a celebration. And the darker implications you're adding to it, I feel like you're only doing it because it's a black person who dared to own a firearm instead of otherwise, because, I don't know, that seems like a very common thing. It's why they were pissed off at the Black Panthers, because they're like, whoa, you guys have guns and you just use them liberally? No, that's a white people thing. But yeah, here's this take from Jay Williams that was definitely very fence-sitter about it, but the NBA can't police vibes, it has to police actions. If gun gestures gestures cross the line, draw the line, ban them, full stop, set the rule. Ja Morant made mistakes and needs to be accountable. Throwing it in the NBA's face is wrong and should be met with a penalty after warning the night before, but he didn't invent the image. He walked into one the league allowed multiple times by other players. Now he's paying for the silence that came before him. Yeah, it's not a bad take. I think the jaw needs to be held accountable thing. I do think it's overblown. Like they talk about him like he's Gilbert Arenas. Like he didn't threaten to shoot one of his teammates in a locker room. It never reached being that level of severe. And I think could he be doing himself more favors by not doing this shit? Absolutely. But there's a certain threshold where that becomes victim blaming. And if he wants to do a gun gesture, I ain't got no fucking problem with it. I feel like sports as a concept basically exists to make men do things that are like aggressive and conquering and dominant without it being literal war. So we get more freaked out about a gun gesture than literally all the people who are being killed by guns right this second. Here is the new interim, probably future head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies. He said, "I do know it won't work if you play your star players less," which definitely seems like a shot at Jenkins, who was playing Ja under 30. I think Jaren just over 30, similar for Desmond Bane, really using the back end of the bench. And he's been shortening that rotation a lot, but also just being smart about getting your best players in the game at the right time. Not so subtle shot from his former assistant coach. Mark Cuban rips into a former Mavericks employee on Facebook. Gavin Malloy, who is a former Mavericks employee, said Cuban should be run out of Dallas. And then he says, "Hey Gavin, how much of a bonus did you get when I sold? Not enough to make up for the Luka trade. I'd give your dirty ass money back for Luka to be here. How about you?" Then he says, "You didn't say a word when it showed up in your account, did you? Sure looks good when we made it to the finals, didn't it? Okay. I did every damn thing I could for 23 years, kept prices lower than not only any NBA team, but lower than college teams too. I had $2 tickets for multiple years. When I sold there, they were always 4K tickets under $29. I made money 2 out of 23 years. I was the majority owner, lost hundreds of millions of dollars, and you kept on collecting your salary. So my dirty dollars didn't get a peep out of you those 23 years, or when you got your check every 2 weeks, or when you got your bonus. Go back to what I said when I sold the team. I didn't want my kids and family to have to deal with people like you. I honestly got tired of the growing numbers of fans who became pricks on social media, people exactly like you. I paid your salary. I paid you a bonus I didn't have to give you. Then Nico and the new owners do something none of us liked, and you decide to try and fuck with me. Thank you for confirming I made the right decision." Okay, buddy. First of all, I don't think it is remotely acceptable to pay someone a salary as you're supposed to for their job and then hold that over their heads going forward as though they're not allowed to be critical of you. That's not how it works. It's not how it was ever supposed to work. And yeah, you didn't have to give your employees a bonus, but you're not a fucking saint because you did. And you're not a saint because you operated your business at a loss. You still had, you lost hundreds of millions of dollars because you had hundreds of millions of dollars to lose. You're still a billionaire. You're still remarkably rich. So you're not going to hear any fucking crying out of me like he took some major sacrifices just because he didn't whore his franchise out for as much money as possible. Like, you're asking me to give praise or like you're some good guy for doing what is essentially just not the worst action you could, which most owners are complete dickheads who will stretch their profit margins as much as they can, no matter the consequence to the consumer. And I guess I can commend you for not doing that, but like a light commending, not like, oh, you're some fucking saint. And again, holding someone's salary and bonus over them, like that means they're not allowed to be critical of you. Fuck that noise. You hold a tremendous amount of power over this person. being the owner, having the money that you do, having the resources and lawyers and all of that you do. This guy is just a regular employee. He's just a man. He makes reasonable money, and he's not Mark fucking Cuban. So stop talking to these people like we're in a similar situation, or you're in a similar situation, or like you're being generous for giving him a $20,000 bonus after you netted millions and millions and millions of dollars every fucking year. Fuck ass billionaires. Mark Cuban is not an exception. He's not. He's still a dumb, rich prick just like the rest of them. Here, on another note, are our finalists for Teammates of the Year. Notice we get a bunch of old bastards on here, but then Jalen, Jaren, Donovan, and Jalen Williams. There's some younger guys on here, but Jesus, it's definitely the boomer brigade. But, that's experience helps you be a better person, I guess, is the lesson there. Just some quick NBA tea. LeBron says he's seen the R&B mixes and he can only laugh at them. Did we not cover that already? Whatever. The Suns and Kevin Durant are expected to work out of a trade for Phoenix. He's interested in the Knicks, the Timberwolves, the Rockets, Spurs, and Heat. Michael Wilbon says that all of the Bronny talks on ESPN is just for clicks, and he refuses to discuss him the way other shows do. Yeah, a couple of you asked about this. I was going to make a Bronny James video, and even though it was a positive video about him, I just was kind of like, I would never make this video about the 55th overall pick having one good game. So I don't want to just participate in the oversaturation of Bronny content either, even though I felt a very strong pull to defend him because there's so much negativity around the guy. But like that 3 he hit in OKC, followed by the crowd just cheering loud as fuck in OKC when he hit the 3, I'm like, the internet's not real. Most people are rooting for this kid, and it's just a bunch of stupid noise, so I'm going to try to pay less mind to it. Cade says, I think I can be the best basketball player in the world. I think I'm on my way. I want people to understand that, and that's what I'm working to show people every time I play. I respect that. I'm not going to... I don't agree. I don't think he will be the best player in the world, but he has every right to believe he can be. Shaq, talking about LeBron, says, LeBron broke the record and he did it as a Laker. Would I oppose him having a statue in Los Angeles? No, I wouldn't. But he won a championship with the Lakers, and a lot of people try to discredit it. If that one doesn't count, then you can't count Mr. Duncan's bubble championship either. That's right, I said it. We're counting Tim Duncan's lockout year as a championship. Then you have to shut the fuck up, Shaq. Kawhi Leonard, with a recent stretch of a ton of good games, 23 points at the absolute lowest. Jason Tatum with a near triple-double against the San Antonio Spurs. 25 boards against the Pistons for Rudy Gobert. 35 with 7 made threes for Jordan Poole, and a huge loss to the Miami Heat, but hey, at least he had a good game. A near 20-20 on 74% true shooting game from Zubats. 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 made threes for Al Horford versus the Grizzlies. 26 is a lot for him these days. And OG Anunoby has been on a crazy streak, dude. I saw the game that he had last night, and I was like, that was a really impressive win. And then I looked at the score, and there's just more and more and more. So he's been going crazy. Tyler Hero's been going pretty damn crazy lately, too. Not too out of line from what we expect. And they have actually been winning games a little bit more recently, which is huge because they have been bad mostly. Anthony Davis has returned. He had 34 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 blocks. I do wonder if there is any chance at all of some noise for this team, even without Kyrie Irving, but I'm willing to bet no. Oh, I didn't see this one. I didn't know Najee Marshall had 38. That's what I'm fucking talking about. 38 on all but 1 3 and 3 free throws, 32 points of pure ethical buckets. That's what I'm talking about, Marshall. Yeah, hashtag ethical is in the tags. Of course it is.
Thing which they did. Morant goes on Ware, step back, and it goes!
And we will end with the NBA injury report. Kyrie Irving underwent successful surgery on his torn ACL. The Pelicans are shutting down CJ and Zion for the remainder of the season, which I saw people like being super reactionary about that. Like, oh, here's Zion out again. And it's like, no, they're shutting him down because there's like 8 games left, and teams do that all the time. Phoenix Suns all-star Kevin Durant expected to miss at least a week with his ankle injury. Brandon Clark gets treated on his injured right knee with an injection infection, not surgery, and is expected to be back for the start of next season. Brunson said Sunday that he is feeling and moving better on his sprained ankle and is hoping to rejoin the Knicks before the playoffs. Atlanta forward Jalen Johnson will have surgery on his left shoulder, his left shoulder, the injury that he suffered on Thursday in a 122-119 loss to the Raptors. The Charlotte Hornets announced that LaMelo Ball will undergo arthroscopic surgery to address his right ankle impingement. I don't know what any of that means. Additionally, the fifth-year guard will have a minor procedure on his right wrist. Ball will miss the remainder of the season. The Sixers announced that Joel Embiid is set to undergo arthroscopic surgery next week on his troublesome left knee. Embiid will be reevaluated in 6 weeks and is expected to make a full recovery. All right. We'll see about that. The Jazz are shutting down Markkanen and Clarkson, and Anthony Davis exits the game after getting an elbow in the eye by his own teammate at the end of the first quarter. It seems like he'll be okay, but should probably be looking into some goggles. Hell yes, I love when players wear goggles. And he really should. I don't know if there's a player in my life who I've seen get poked in the eye more than Anthony Davis. The fact that he got elbowed in the eye is not any bit surprising to me. I feel like there's a million photos of that guy with just like bright red eyes because he got hit in them. But yeah, that was NBA news. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to Nick for editing this video. But that is it. Goodbye.